In the New York Times story that I referenced moments ago, there's somebody in the story who says, well, why didn't the judge just let the law be implemented? Just let the law take effect to see if what she said would actually happen. Well, there's a very good reason why they don't want the law to take effect, because what they say is going to happen will not happen. It's no more complicated than that. She and the federal government are afraid it won't happen. I'm talking about profiling. They're afraid it will not happen, which is why they rushed the lawsuit and why she rushed her ruling. She declared that enforcing a federal law interferes with it. So the judge and Holder, the Department of Justice, rushed this decision precisely because they knew they would not have the profiling and other horrible things that they were saying would happen. All of these hypotheticals, they weren't going to happen. They're not part of the law. So the light of truth would be shining on this. The jig would be up. This would be seen for what it is. A bunch of spin and lies and distortion about the law. Now, why would Obama have any empathy for the citizens of Arizona or any of the states that are now overrun by illegal aliens? Investors Business Daily, particularly good with this paragraph on the Arizona ruling yesterday. By the logic of Judge Bolton's ruling, the state trooper who arrested Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh on a speeding violation in 1995. This is a great analogy. McVeigh was speeding away from Oklahoma City. State trooper arrested him on a speeding violation. That would now be prohibited. That trooper would be prohibited from arresting McVeigh for the federal crime of the bombing. Because the bombing was a federal crime, and only the feds can enforce federal law. So if this judge had rendered a decision in Arizona years ago, back in the 90s, McVeigh would have been released. It would have been an illegal arrest. And I think it's a great analogy. If it wasn't clear before, it is now. The federal government has no intent of enforcing the laws against rampant, brazen, illegal immigration. Investors Business Daily says, indeed, it will punish those states that try, leaving them at the mercy of the kidnappers, the terrorists, gangsters, drug dealers, human traffickers that now freely cross the southern border. Now, folks, to shield these kinds of thugs is to sentence the innocent to certain harm. Yeah, that's not by the consent of the government. This is not the will of the people, what happened in Arizona yesterday. Not even close. This is not big government either. This is lawlessness. This is closer to big anarchy. It's preventing the police from performing their most fundamental task, and that is to serve, protect, and defend law-abiding, tax-paying citizens who are taking it in the shorts every way they turn around, financially, legally. The people playing by the rules, the people paying the bills, are the ones being savaged. This ruling yesterday was an act of aggression against the people of Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona is the kidnapping capital of the world. Well, outside Mexico City. Phoenix, Arizona, throw Mexico City out of it. Phoenix, the kidnapping capital of the world. Now, should the local authorities stop arresting kidnappers? Because kidnapping is a federal offense. You get kidnapped, the FBI is going to come knock on your door. Somebody in your family gets kidnapped, it's the FBI that's going to come calling. The FBI wants to get involved. But can local authorities do anything here when somebody kidnapped? My good friend Andy McCarthy, National Review Online, making the complex understandable. In essence, Judge Bolton bought the Justice Department's preemption argument. That is, the claim that the federal government has broad and exclusive authority to regulate immigration, and therefore that any state measure that's inconsistent with federal law is invalid. Well, the Arizona law is completely consistent with federal law. The judge, however, twisted the concept of federal law into federal enforcement practices, or as it happens, a lack thereof. So, in effect, the court is saying that if the feds refuse to enforce the law, the states can't do it either, because doing so would transgress the federal policy of non-enforcement, which is nuts. But that's essentially what's happening. That is totally nuts, but that's what the judge's ruling said. Look, you cannot preempt the federal government, no matter what it does. And the federal government has chosen not to enforce the law, therefore you can't. Now, you apply this to any other crime. Apply this to Tim McVeigh blowing up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City and driving away and being pulled over for speeding by a state trooper. So she said, if you've heard this word preemptive or preemption, this is the best description of it. You cannot preempt federal law no matter what they do, on the enforcement side too, because the law mirrors federal law. Arizona's law mirrors. It's almost a carbon copy. And the judge says if the feds choose not to enforce their law, then you in Arizona can't either. You cannot preempt federal law. Federal law is exclusive, including enforcement. It's absolutely insane. I mean, this judge is a partisan political operative. She wears a robe and she has a gavel, but she's not a judge. She's a partisan political operative of the left. Let's listen to the governor of Arizona. This is Jan Brewer's last night on Hannity. Question in your mind, today's court ruling to say that it appears the federal government won't protect American citizens, won't enforce the law. And also, on the other hand, now the state of Arizona, you can't do it either. Is that fair?
Very fair. That's the truth. We now have been told by a federal judge and by the federal government that they're just not going to enforce their laws, and they're not going to allow Arizona to help them enforce their laws. So it was a bit of disappointment, but let me say that, this is a little road bump on the path. The lawsuit will continue through the court.
And what are your next steps? What are you going to do next?
Tomorrow we will file an expedited appeal at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Knowing that the Ninth Circuit, of course, is a pretty liberal situation, and I assume that we will move forward then to the to the Supreme Court.
Right.
I'm not a quitter. The people of Arizona are not quitters. America is not going to sit back, I don't believe, and allow this type of action to take place. We are a nation of laws, and we believe they need to be enforced.
Selectively is how they're being enforced, and they're being ignored. But she's right. She's not going to quit. I asked her. I interviewed Governor Brewer for the next issue of the Limbaugh letter. And I try not to cannibalize the newsletter by telling you what's coming up in it. But I got to tell you this. I asked her, because she's been the focus of personal assaults, her family. She's getting the Sarah Palin, Rush Limbaugh royal treatment. I said, you ever think about just chucking it all in? You think about just, okay, never mind. And so she said, no, but it has been tough. She said yesterday, this is just the first step. God bless this governor. She's showing a resolve, a courage, and a toughness that's not found very often, too many places. It's an amazing thing to watch a 20% minority rule, not even govern, but rule the country like this.